Hello and welcome to this series on Sanskrit, Part 6, Combinations of Consonants. Our final question in this series is, what happens when two of the same kinds of letters come together? That is to say, what happens when two vowels or two consonants meet each other? First of all, with regard to vowels, there aren't ever two vowels next to each other. As we shall see under the heading of euphonics later on, there are ways of compromising the results between the two vowels, including substituting one different vowel, or both of them, or even just dropping one. It is, however, very common for two consonants to stand side by side. Of course, without any further warning, the implicit a comes up again and slides itself comfortably behind both consonants. So the word for elephant is gaja, written with ga and ja, and true to form, the word is pronounced gaja. So what can we do if we don't want to put up with the intrusive a? No, I'm sorry, inserting the virama after the first letter is not an option. One of the two consonants has to give up its surrounding structure, such as the vertical line and maybe some other parts. The second consonant gets to retain its normal look, and thereby the two will merge into one single combined form. The first consonant, as intimated, gets stripped down to its most significant part that still allows for identification. So, as an example, let's see how we can form the syllable kva. We begin with the letter ka, except that we put a virama under it because it's about to become a part of something bigger. The ka has to give up its right half and connect up with a va, and we get kva. The same rule applies to more than two consonants. Thus, we can see that sa and ta in this example get slimmed down, and the pa in its full glory to give us stpa. Most consonant combinations are fairly easy to figure out. So we have sa and ta, and we only get to use one half of the s, the sa, and we get sta. Ga and na give us kna. The combination can also be vertical. So as we see in the third line here, when a da and a ga come together, the sign for the ga is at the bottom of the da. Now the order of decoding is reversed from the horizontal arrangement. We read it top to bottom. You can see the da, the first letter, this time comes in full form, and the ga has been minimized. The way to read this is the ga. Also, there is a way to double a letter. So, as an example, the la is doubled by piling one on top of the other. The semivowel ra has some unique properties when it becomes social. There are two situations. First, there's the case when the ra appears right after a consonant and before a vowel. We can use the word grama, which means village, as an example. The ra attaches itself to the ga, and it does so in the form of a slant right to left underneath the ga. So this is, on the right, how we would spell grama. The second case is when the ra follows a vowel and is followed by a consonant. For example, the word dharma, the ra follows the a and precedes the ma. In that case, we put a little hook on top of the consonant, the ma in this case. The ra is pronounced ahead of the ma. In fact, it doesn't matter how many other consonants are involved. The ra hook always goes atop the very last consonant in the series, and it is always pronounced first. Confusing? Only at first. Just remember the rule. The hook is marked last and pronounced first. There are some combinations that are quite common and have developed unique characters that don't look like the two hybridized letters. Unsurprisingly, our friend Ra leads this group. The Ta and Ra give us the simple symbol which reads Tra, but does not look like a combination of the Ta and Ra. The Ha and Ma often link up. For example, it shows up in the word Brahma. Actually, you can see the vestiges of a Ha and Ma, but the sign is so ornate it's easier to learn to recognize the figure rather than try to dissect it. Another symbol in its own right is the ksha, which starts with the ta and sha, but then the symbol for ksha is unique and it comes up quite often, for example, in the designation of the warrior caste as the kshatriya. Ja and na are a frequent combination, and that combination also has formed its own sign. And we have the da and ya come together to form dya. Again, one may be able to find how the hybridization went, but it's probably a lot easier to add one more design to what we memorize rather than try to pick it apart. Now, to fulfill my promise and to show you exactly how to write Sanskrit in Sanskrit, and I'm doing so just because it's fun and it contains a number of little details that don't necessarily always come up all together in one word. So we begin, of course, as we said earlier in a previous video, with the letter Sa. Now, do you remember the Anuswara, the nasal N sound that's a lot like a French nasal, which does not quite close? Well, that's, of course, the N designation that goes with the Sa. So we have sang, and that's where we left off in the earlier video. Now we need to combine some consonants. Specifically, we need to get the S and K together, or Sa and Ka. And so we follow the rules. We take half of the Sa, let the Ka stand as it is, and we get Sk. And there is no A behind it because there is the virama here for the moment. Now we need to find a way of saying Re. We have Sansk, but we don't yet have the Rit sound. Now, you may have been thinking in terms of putting a Ra or R into that place, but actually what follows now is the vowel Re, except it's going to come in its internal form, which you may remember is just a half-open loop, which is placed at the bottom of the consonant which it follows. So that little loop says Re, and we have made it as far as Sanskrit. We just need the T. Now, the T is easily affixed to what we have, but of course it is not a T by itself, but it's a Ta. And so we have Sanskrita. And that transcription of the word is fine. We can give it one more little touch so that it will be exactly the way we may want it without ending in an A. And of course we can do that by way of the virama, which we said indicates that the word ends on the consonant. So there we have it, Sanskrit. And now we're ready to learn some real words and use them in sentences. It's time for lesson 1 in Perry.